Have you ever felt trapped inside your own mind? Like a ghost wandering the hallways of your own thoughts, searching for a door that won't open. You think you know yourself, right? But beneath the surface, hidden in the shadows, there's a darker truth, a psychological prison crafted by fear, trauma, and forgotten memories. It's a place where your deepest anxieties become real, where your past claws at the present, and where your sense of self fractures into fragments you can barely recognize. Imagine this: every day, you carry an invisible weight. Not just stress or worry, but a gnawing, relentless ache that no one sees, no one understands. You try to speak, to reach out, but the words get caught in a web of shame and confusion. You feel alone, isolated, haunted by parts of yourself that refuse to heal. Here's the shocking truth: the mind can become a haunted house, where the ghosts are your unresolved pain, your childhood wounds, your unspoken fears. And sometimes, those ghosts don't just scare you, they control you. Are you ready to face the shadows lurking within? To finally understand the silent scream inside your head? Because what you're about to discover, it's not just psychology. It's survival. It's transformation. And it's the key to unlocking the cage you didn't even know you were trapped in. Emma sat alone in the darkened room, her hands trembling. The soft hum of the city outside felt miles away, distant and unreal, like a world she no longer belonged to. For years, she had worn a mask of calm, laughter, and normalcy, but inside was a storm. "You never really see me," she whispered to the empty room. "Not the real me." Her voice cracked. "Not the part that screams in silence." Emma's story wasn't unique, but it was deeply painful. As a child, she had learned early on that emotions were dangerous. Crying meant weakness, and weakness invited cruelty. So she bottled everything up. The hurt, the fear, the confusion. And as the years passed, the silence grew louder. One night, when the world was asleep, Emma found herself walking the narrow streets near her childhood home. The memories came rushing back, the harsh words, the cold shoulders, the nights spent alone, trying to make sense of a world that never made sense to her. Suddenly, she saw a reflection in a shop window. It wasn't her usual reflection. It was fragmented, blurry, like a broken mirror. And in that moment, Emma realized, she was haunted by the parts of herself she had tried to bury. "Who am I really?" she asked the glass. "And why am I so afraid to know?" This question would haunt Emma for months. It was the beginning of a journey, a descent into the darkest corners of her psyche, and an exploration of what it means to be truly free. Our minds are complex worlds, layered like ancient cities, with streets and alleys both familiar and terrifying. The stories we tell ourselves shape these cities. But sometimes, those stories trap us in cycles of pain and fear. To understand why, we need to uncover the psychological forces that haunt us. 1. The shadow self, the ghost within. Carl Jung called it the shadow, the parts of us we deny, reject, or hide. This shadow isn't evil, it's simply the collection of traits, feelings, and memories we've pushed into darkness because they're uncomfortable or painful. Imagine your mind as a house. The shadow lives in the basement, out of sight, but always there. When ignored, it seeps through the cracks, influencing your behavior in ways you don't understand. It whispers doubts, fuels fears, and hides truths you're afraid to face. Take Sarah, who always felt a sudden surge of anger she couldn't explain. She thought she was losing control, but in truth, her shadow was trying to speak. It was the voice of years of suppressed frustration and hurt, screaming to be heard. 2. Trauma loops, the endless echoes. Trauma doesn't just disappear. Instead, it loops, like a broken record stuck on the worst moments. These trauma loops replay memories over and over, often without conscious awareness, keeping us trapped in pain. Imagine walking through a haunted forest, where every shadow looks like a monster from your past. That's what trauma loops do, they distort reality, making the present feel threatening because the past never truly left. Consider James, who couldn't form close relationships. His trauma loop from childhood abandonment made every intimate moment feel like a trap. His mind was stuck in an old fear, even when the danger was gone. 3. Attachment wounds, the invisible chains. Our earliest relationships create attachment styles, patterns that dictate how we connect with others. When these bonds are broken or unsafe, we develop attachment wounds that shape our adult lives. Think of attachment wounds as invisible chains. They bind us to old pain, making it hard to trust, love, or feel safe. For example, Lisa craved connection but pushed people away, afraid of being hurt again. Her anxious avoidant attachment style was a paradox, longing to be close, yet terrified of vulnerability. 4. Ego defenses, the masks we wear. The ego is our conscious self, the I we present to the world. But to protect itself, the ego builds defenses: denial, repression, projection. These masks keep pain at bay but also warp reality. Imagine walking through a carnival of mirrors, where your reflection changes with every step. Ego defenses create distorted images, illusions that protect but also isolate. Mark, for instance, denied his depression for years, insisting he was fine. This denial was a defense mechanism, a fragile shield against a terrifying truth. 5. Cognitive distortions, the mind's dark filters. Our thoughts are powerful, but sometimes, they're twisted. Cognitive distortions are biased ways of thinking that reinforce negativity. Common distortions include catastrophizing, everything is terrible, black and white thinking, I'm either perfect or a failure, and personalization, it's all my fault. These distortions act like dark glasses, tinting reality and deepening despair. Take Anna, who believed every mistake meant she was worthless. Her distorted thinking fed a cycle of self-loathing. 6. The egregore effect, collective shadows. Beyond the individual, there's a collective dimension. The egregore is a psychological concept describing how groups create shared energy fields, collective fears, beliefs, and myths that influence individuals. Imagine a dark cloud hovering over a community, feeding off collective anxieties. This cloud shapes behaviors, stigmas, and even mental health patterns. In times of crisis, the egregore can amplify fear, making personal struggles feel universal and inescapable. Delving deeper, we find the labyrinth where identity and trauma entwine, where the self fractures and struggles to reassemble. 1. Fragmented identity, the self in pieces. When trauma is profound, the self can fragment, like shattered glass scattered across a floor. Each fragment holds memories, feelings, and beliefs, often conflicting and disconnected. This fragmentation creates confusion. Who am I? Becomes a question without an answer. Imagine living multiple lives simultaneously, each fragment vying for control. This is dissociation, a survival mechanism that protects the mind from unbearable pain. Sophia, for example, experienced dissociation after childhood abuse. She felt like a stranger to herself, as if her life was a patchwork of disconnected moments. 2. Trauma loops and ego wounds, the chain reaction. Ego wounds are deep psychological injuries to our sense of worth and identity, often rooted in trauma. These wounds create loops, cycles where pain triggers defenses, which in turn cause more pain. It's like a wildfire, one spark ignites another, spreading through the psyche. When these loops dominate, healing feels impossible. The mind becomes a battlefield, with ego defenses fighting the shadow self, while trauma loops replay endlessly. 3. Attachment and emotional resonance. Attachment wounds shape not only relationships but also emotional regulation. When attachment is insecure, emotions become volatile or numb. Imagine a radio tuning in and out, sometimes clear, sometimes static. That's how emotions feel for those with attachment wounds. Healing requires retuning this emotional radio, learning to sit with feelings, tolerate discomfort, and build new bonds. 4. The illusion of control and the fear of the unknown. The mind craves control, certainty in an uncertain world. But trauma shatters this illusion, leaving us terrified of the unknown. Imagine walking a tightrope over a dark abyss. Every step is uncertain, every breath shaky. This fear fuels avoidance, anxiety, and resistance to change, perpetuating the psychological prison. 5. The power of naming, giving voice to the shadows. One of the most profound steps in healing is naming the unnamed, identifying the shadows, the wounds, the distortions. Naming creates distance, from pain to observation, from chaos to order. It's like turning on a light in a dark room. Suddenly, the shadows lose their power, and you can see clearly. Healing the haunted mind isn't about quick fixes or happy platitudes. It's about deep, slow, courageous work, a journey into the darkness to find the light. 1. Embrace the shadow, lean into the discomfort. Don't run from the parts of yourself you fear. Welcome them with curiosity. Ask, what are you trying to tell me? The shadow is a messenger, not an enemy. This might feel terrifying, but it's necessary. 2. Break the trauma loops, interrupt the cycle. When old patterns replay, pause. Breathe. Name the feeling. Imagine cutting the loop, breaking the record. Use grounding techniques, feel your feet on the ground, focus on your breath, remind yourself you're safe, now. 3. Rebuild attachment, seek safe connection. Reach out to those who offer genuine safety and acceptance. Healing happens in relationship, even if it's hard to believe. Practice vulnerability slowly, gently. Allow yourself to be seen. 4. Challenge cognitive distortions, question your thoughts. When your mind spirals, ask, is this true? Is there another way to see this? Replace distortions with balanced perspectives. This is not about forced positivity, but honest reflection. 5. Reclaim identity, integrate the fragments. Write your story. Speak your truth. Create rituals that honor your whole self, even the broken parts. Integration is messy, non-linear, but it leads to wholeness. 6. Find meaning in the darkness. Pain and trauma can become sources of insight, teachers that show you what truly matters. Ask, what can I learn from this? How can this make me stronger? Transformation comes when we stop fighting the shadows and start dancing with them. The mind's haunted hallways are dark, cold, and lonely, but they're also sacred. They hold the echoes of our deepest fears, yes, but also the seeds of profound growth. Look inside. Can you hear the silent screams? The whispers of your shadow self? They are not there to destroy you, but to awaken you. What if the ghosts you fear are really guides, shining light on what you need to heal? What if the prison is also a doorway, waiting for you to find the key? So, I ask you now, in this quiet moment, with the world fading away, what part of yourself have you been too afraid to face? And what would happen if, just for a moment, you met that part with compassion? Leave your thoughts below, because sometimes, sharing the shadows can be the first step toward freedom.